Harun, welcome. I'm Uday Pratap Singh. You're watching a brand new episode of NewsX India A-List in our endeavour to bring forth the stories of some of India's finest and brightest. Today we've put together for you another unmissable telecast with India's who's who. Well, let's get you this special interview with our guest for the day today.
Leading chartered accountant in India.
Coming here for the Indian economy as the markets.
That we have the demographics, we have the determination, and we have the demand to show that in the times to come, India will continue to be a leading economy for the world.
Vision ahead for Indian economy.
Room for growth as far as the economy is concerned.
As FDI, you have to create a climate where you attract investments. Second is, you have to create meaningful job at the bottom of the pyramids.
NewsX India A-List recognizes Chandan Karmhe for excellence in entrepreneurship.
Watching A-List, we're joined by a very special guest, Mr. Chandan Karmhe. Chandan Karmhe became a qualified chartered accountant at the age of 20. He was one of the youngest to qualify as the prestigious exam of CA, ranked among one of the toughest in the world. Even before reaching the prescribed age of 21, he is a law graduate from Campus Law Center, University of Delhi, and an alumnus of IIM Ahmedabad. He regularly writes columns for India's leading publications. His work has been cited in research papers. He's being recognized for his thought leadership writing and for being a young thinker in finance, business, law, and public policy. Hello, and thank you so much for having us, for being with us on NewsX. I'm going to kickstart this conversation by asking you, how do you see the coming year for the Indian economy as the markets?
Thank you. It's an honor to be on your show. So I'll take the economy question first because the capital markets are broadly linked to the economy. Not always, but ideally. So big picture, India is today the land of promise. We have demonstrated to the world that not only we are capable of registering a 7% plus growth, that we also hold a promise for times to come. This means that we have the demographics, we have the determination, and we have the demand to show that in the times to come, India will continue to be a leading economy for the world. Now, coming to 2024, it deserves a granular answer. So if you see the demand side calculation of the GDP, it basically has consumption, investment, government spending, and net exports. Now, each of these buckets have interesting stories to tell. So I'll take them one by one. In investment, government has really outdone itself in the past couple of years. And you see a lot of investment in public infra. So an interesting fact in this regard is that today, the highest concentration of construction cranes in the world is in Mumbai. You see construction of roads, highways, airports, ports, everything is happening. Add to that the digital public infra. But the catch here is that India is a BBB minus credit rating country, and it has the highest debt in its peer group, which means the capacity is limited. Currently, the fiscal deficit is around 5.9%, and the target is to bring it to 4.5% over the next couple of years. So there is not much room there for the government to spend more. But the good thing is that it's an opportune time for the private companies to enter the credit cycle. Their balance sheets are looking very good, banks are well capitalized, and overall the consumer sentiment is very positive. So we are looking at a private capex cycle, perhaps not in this quarter, not in next, but once the uncertainty over the elections is over, it can kickstart. This is about the investment. About government spending, so government has some compulsory spending that has to do especially in interest and on subsidies. Now, there is very little room for government to not spend them. So the revenue kicks in here. You have the GST collection and you have the direct taxes. Both are registering good growth. Direct taxes last year registered a 20% growth. Next is consumption. Now this is very interesting because in consumption, you are seeing a clear case of premiumization of the economy. While the demand for affordable housing is not as much, but for houses above 1 crore, they are selling like hotcakes. Similarly, there is a lot of demand for SUVs, but affordable cars, not so much. So this is a study in itself, and it tells you that businesses have to cater to consumers who are now positioned differently. There would be more discretionary spending. Goldman Sachs has come out with a popular report called the Affluent India. It shows that 60 million people now are earning more than 8 lakh rupees per month, per year. This figure is going to go up to 100 million by 2027. This means that there is a K-shaped recovery that has happened. There is a lot of premium consumption at the top, but at the bottom, the consumption is not so much. So you need to create meaningful jobs at the bottom. The exports have remained flat, and there is not much that you can do, because unless the global environment is better and you have demand, you cannot really export. But the good thing is that Indian economy is registering a 7% growth, not only in the absence of export, but despite the exports not helping the GDP. Big picture, I think we are poised well, both on a macro front and in the micro front. There is equity culture that is coming up in the country. We are looking at a double-digit earnings growth in the next couple of years. So India is poised very well, and there is global traction to India. And I think we are going to hold our story strong for not only in the next couple of years, but perhaps for the coming decade.
Right, absolutely. But how are the Indian markets impacted by what's going on in China?
So China is interesting. 20 years ago, China had two very positive things. One, that it was a market economy. Mao Zedong led the bait into Deng Xiaoping, and he reformed China to become a market economy. The second was, it had tremendous demographics. For every one person retiring, 10 people were joining the Chinese labor force. So it had very good demographics. Now both these two factors are challenged now. Now China is moving again towards authoritarian rule. And by authoritarian, I mean how you administer the market. It was always an authoritarian rule as far as the politics is concerned. And the second is that capital is fleeting China. It is because of the aging demographics. The estimate is that by 2050, China would have worse demographics than America. It would be in the same league as Europe and Japan. So it leads us to two things. One, there would be capital reallocation. For the first time in recorded history, since we have started recording FDI inflows, China has registered a degrowth. I think in the last calculation, it had registered a degrowth of $10 billion. This is strange, because when China was booming, it was getting an FDI of $100 billion per quarter. Now for a country like that to register a degrowth, it is strange. So capital is moving out of China. Second is the supply chain shift. Now the question is, how is India impacted by this? On both fronts, in supply chain shift, you have companies like Apple, which are saying that by 2025, 25% of the iPhones will be made in India. As far as capital allocation is concerned, the countries who are really benefiting by this are countries like Vietnam, Indonesia, Brazil. India, not so much. We are still around 1% of GDP as far as FDI is concerned. During the East Asian boom, the East Asian countries were getting about 3 to 4% of FDI. So a lot needs to be done as far as our attraction as an investment destination is concerned. Supply chain shift also, nobody loved China. People invested in China because the Chinese provided good infrastructure. They provided a favorable labor market. They provided an environment which was conducive to business. We are getting there, we will get there, but it will be slow and steady.
Right, absolutely. There's a big event that's coming up this year. It is the general elections, of course, but how do you see the impact of the same on the capital markets?
So this is the biggest year for democracy across the globe. 46% of the global population is going for vote. But there is a contrast. So across the world, you see that there is a sense of anti-incumbency, very Indian word coined by Dorab. But in India, you see there is not much anti-incumbency, and the approval ratings are pretty high, which also tells you that the capital markets have priced this in, and they are not expecting any surprise here. And my sense is that the market is right. Also broadly, there is a lot of volatility before the elections as far as the capital markets are concerned, but slowly in medium term and long term, elections do not have as much impact. But 2024, I think it is a predictable election and markets would get what it is factoring in.
All right. What are some of the areas where there's a room for growth as far as the economy is concerned?
So this will also flow out from my earlier answers. Number one is FDI. You have to create a climate where you attract investments. Second is you have to create meaningful job at the bottom of the pyramid so that the consumption story is wholesome and you are not getting consumption only from the top. Third is that you have to work on your exports. Why exports are good? Because not only when you export, you manufacture, and you manufacture top quality goods, which also leads to competition in the domestic economy as far as quality is concerned. So it's a good thing. We can work on how to make our exports attractive to the world. Fourth is we really have to be serious about the female labor force participation. Then there is the MSME financing. So these are broadly the areas where I think there is room for growth in the Indian economy. Yeah.
You know, you've written a lot on issues around women. Now, what are your thoughts on participation of women in the economy?
So this is an important issue because this is not only an economic issue, but it is an issue of social equity. Now, India, by any calculation, has very poor female labor force participation rate. And India is distinct because normally when economies grow rapidly, more women join the labor force. Here the reverse is happening. In the 1990s, the female labor force participation rate was around 35%. It has fallen since. Now, the question that I ask myself is, why is this happening? Number one reason is that it's not as if women are not working, but we have not devised the means to capture that. What you call household activity, if you hire someone to do that, it is an economic activity. So you are not capturing that. Then there are women who are engaged in family enterprises, doing unpaid work. This also abstains them from joining the labor force, right? Then there is the problem of infrastructure, law and order. And we are, because of less participation of women in the economy, we are losing out not only economics, but on social equity, making India attractive to the world where more people participate in the economy. And this is a serious issue and it should be discussed and we need to do more for this.
Right, absolutely. With that, I'd like to thank you for joining us on the broadcast and sharing your perspectives with our viewers.
Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.